Oh, it's lucky number 7 for this week's podcast. I'm joined by the gorgeous Tom Allen. When I first announced this podcast, he was one of the first people I wanted to take part. I met him years ago on the comedy circuit and we've remained friends ever since, and he is genuinely as lovely as he comes across on the telly, and I'm thrilled his career is taking off for him, which it has been over the past few years. He's super busy at the minute, but I managed to quickly record this podcast in his dressing room before he had to go on and record Mock the Week, hence why you may hear a few interruptions, including a brilliant interruption from his fellow comic Angela Barnes, who she's starstruck basically over bumping into Gloria Hunniford in the lift. But hey, it's unedited, it's organic, and Tom is highly entertaining in this episode. I'm thrilled he could take part, and if you don't love him already, you will after this episode. So enjoy, sit back, and listen to the ever delightful Tom Allen. I am thrilled, delighted, ecstatic to be joined by a dear friend of mine, Tom Allen.
Lee, you paused there slightly as though you'd forgotten my surname.
How could I ever?
It's lovely to be joining you on this podcast.
So we met, I was trying to think this on the way in today. I can't actually remember the year. They roll into one.
They do, don't they, the years? They have that habit. What year, where do you think it was?
Well, I know where it was. It was Berry.
Yes.
The exotic Berry Met.
Doing like LGBTQI+.
It was called...
It wasn't called that back then, though, was it?
No. We weren't afforded any more letters. It was actually called The Only Gays... Not The Only Gays in the Village.
Oh, that's right. That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I was emceeing.
Yes, doing
and
very
you
good job
were,
as always.
Thank you. You were closing. We hadn't met because, as you know,
yes,
gay comics barely ever meet.
Never the twain shall meet. Yes, exactly.
And you were so
awful.
You were so shit. No, you were so lovely. And I was thinking this on the way in, and you may have this, where basically I always thought, like, sometimes when you meet comics, and you'll know this,
they make you feel physically sick.
Well, before you go on, they barely speak to you, like experienced comics. So I was quite new then.
Really? Do you find that?
I used to when I was starting out.
And then you want to know what's going on.
Yeah, well, but they wouldn't speak to you, and then you'd go on, you'd do a good job, and then they'd be like, hey, and it's basically they were waiting to see whether you were a bit shit or not. You never did that with me.
No, but I always think as well, like, it's always scary, and I always think, like, that all that kind of aggressive atmosphere, all it does is just mean that, like, really cocky people are the ones who survive it. So I always think it's nice to talk to people and see what they're about.
And then we ended up going out.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Did we
we went to, like, GAY on Canal Street.
Well, we couldn't find anywhere else. Weatherspoons was closed. No, but wasn't that the night we ended up at a Mary Poppins after-show party?
Oh my God, I'd completely forgotten about that, Lee. You took us there. I thought it was a dream.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. And people were dressed up as their favourite musical theatre character.
Yes, and hadn't they got in? It was like a sort of like, if you were a VIP ticket holder, you could go to the Mary Poppins after party.
I don't know how I got into that. Did I know someone?
You must, Lee. I think you know a lot of people. You knew someone in the cast, or you knew someone.
Well, it was great.
You're good with the gays, Lee.
I am. And Mary Poppins is basically mine.
My favourite.
My favourite.
What did you think of the sequel?
Well, I hate to say it, but I may have got a ticket to the European premiere.
There you go, you see. You're good. You're very good.
I am, but actually I won it. I would love to say I was invited by Meryl, but I won it on Instagram through Harvey Nichols, and then I won a £500 Harvey Nichols voucher.
Lee, that's great.
Do you know those
that app? I got rid of it. I don't know why.
What? Instagram?
No, Harvey Nichols.
Oh, I was
the app. Insta, what is it called?
No, so basically I tagged, so it was one of those stupid competitions going tag a friend you want to take, and I tagged someone who I was in love with at the time because we loved Mary Poppins, and they messaged the next day. Anyway, digress. I was 4 rows away from Meryl Streep.
Wow,
I loved it. Did you not?
Well, do you know what? I saw it on a plane recently, and I didn't mind it. I suppose I just thought, what's this all about, Alfie? Like, what's it all like? when you see Saving Mr. Banks, have you seen that one?
Yeah.
Like, I really like that, and I thought that was really interesting about her story and how it was sort of an allegory for her dad. And I just thought the sequel was a bit like, no, who cares?
Oh, okay. Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks, Tom.
And all the songs were a bit similar.
Oh, that was one thing where it was like, oh, this is the Feed the Birds, this is the Second Time.
It was like the exact equivalent. And why was he a firelighter? That's not anything we've ever... Like, why wasn't he just Bert again? Just another version of Bert. That would have been fine.
Yeah. Although you must have loved it when Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
The whole Royal Albert Hall. I don't know if I mentioned it was like the Royal Albert Hall.
It was the European premiere.
They cheered. It was very emotional.
Was Dick there?
Dick wasn't there.
Oh no. Was he doing some more episodes of Diagnosis Murder?
Tom, so
Yes.
let's talk about, you grew up in Bromley.
Let's talk about it. Yes, I did.
Bromley. I've never been to Bromley.
No, and indeed, why would you?
Actually, I was going to go. Isn't the Churchill Theatre
Yes,
over in Bromley? I was going to go.
I've been invited to a premiere there as well.
It was press night for Full Monty. It's very similar. So you grew up in Bromley.
Yeah.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I do have a younger brother.
I didn't know that about you.
He's a Tyler. Yeah.
Is he?
That's your tiling. For your tiling needs. Yes. We're quite different, really. Well, it's unfair to say he's different. I think I, in the family, am the different one.
Right, okay, yeah.
It's unfair to suggest my parents are in some way different. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, they were all completely normal people. And then they had this sort of unusual offshoot arrive that it's just odd all the time. Like,
so what was your childhood like? Do you look back and think it was a happy one?
Yes, it was. Yes, absolutely. I was talking about this today. Primary school. I didn't like primary school.
Really?
Is that a weird thing to say?
Well, I don't know. Possibly. I loved primary school myself, and I'm only going from the same experience of a gay man, I suppose, who was also very eccentric.
Sure. Yeah.
Not as eccentric as some of the things I've heard yourself.
Really? It's not a competition.
No, it's not top drums. But no, yeah, sorry, go on.
No,
primary school. Why didn't...
I don't know. I think all that sort of child... I always felt like I was an adult. Like, I always felt like there'd been a terrible admin error, and I was somehow placed as an adult in primary school.
Right.
And I'm sort of writing material about it at the moment, of like... I mean, I've sort of already spoken loosely about it, but how I always felt like, oh no, this is completely madness that I've been put in to a school with all these children when I'm clearly a 45-year-old man. And so, like, putting up with all of their childishness and all the sort of nonsense in the playground, I was like, well, I don't want to go out and play. I'd rather be getting on with some sort of tax return. And so I never really liked playtime. I never really socialised very well. And then other kids, I think at that age, don't have any social... they haven't been socialised, so they don't have manners or
social intelligence.
Social intelligence. So I always felt like when they were mean, I always felt like, oh, that really hurt.
And you just felt like you must have been born with it.
Yeah, maybe I was born this way.
Yeah. And so secondary school.
Sorry, yeah.
What happened with secondary school?
I was terrified of going to secondary school, and then when I got there, I actually really liked it because I think, I liked bits of it, and particularly once I got settled in the first few years. But I always thought, like, it's vast, and so you can sort of be your own person, you can be a bit more anonymous there, which I liked. And there's much more to do, and you have a bit more freedom, and you can, if you don't like hanging out with a certain group, you can walk, you don't need to be near them at lunchtime, do you know what I mean? Or you could find things to be getting on with, or you could join a club. For example, it's lovely how the way that, like, secondary school lunchtimes are basically like a warm-up for retirement. You can just walk a gardening club.
Yeah, it is.
Stuff. And so I like doing that. And then I enjoyed secondary school a lot more, I think. Were you the other way round?
I guess so, yeah. I don't particularly remember having a hard time at primary school or feeling different as such, but over the course of secondary school, I suppose that's when I was starting to, maybe 15, 16, come, into wondering about my sexuality.
Did you come out at secondary school?
No. Well, I used to say I was asexual, but that was basically because no one would have sex with me. But, so it wasn't that I didn't want to.
Yeah.
No, I came out at 19. I was going to ask, when did you come out?
21.
Did you?
Yeah,
so we are quite late.
Yes, I wonder about that. Although I think actually there's quite a lot of us who are that age. It's just those ones who come out at like 14 who are just a bit more sort of chatty about it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Naturally, I mean...
And it's easier for people these days.
I guess it is a bit easier sometimes, isn't it? Or there's certainly, like, role models. Although I think there's still plenty of, like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
Oh, it must be, yeah.
You know.
So you went it's still in Bromley?
Still in Bromley, Lee.
And
still
then
in Bromley.
did you go?
Zone 5. For those of you wondering where it is on the TFL.
Zone 5.
Travel card zone.
And you joined the National Youth Theatre, didn't you?
Lee, great knowledge. Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Well, I left school at 18 and I thought I wanted to go to university. And I went for the interview to go to Cambridge to do history.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. And really was not very well prepared. And didn't know what to do. And I just thought, like, it'll be enough that I'm a nice person. I went in and was, like, really chatty and polite, as I'd always been told was so important and so endearing about me by my mum's friends and the neighbours. I got there, and of course, like, you know, people who went to Eton and stuff, they were taught by loads of teachers who went to Oxford and Cambridge. So I feel like they have much more of an insight into what they're looking for. And so I absolutely buggered that up. And not in a good way. And then felt a bit disillusioned with all of it, really, and just sort of thought, even though I knew I was academic, I just sort of thought, like, well, what's the point? And I think I was a bit fed up. I'd worked hard at school all the way through, and then I was like, what am I getting from this? Because, sort of saying about, like, being asexual, everything was so frightening. Like, I was so frightened to go out and have any kind of adult life or go on dates or anything. I was just like, well, fuck all this education bullshit. I don't want to go to university. Everyone was horrified. And then a drama teacher who'd left the school, I got in contact with her and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, have you thought about joining the National Youth Theatre? And I went for an audition. I did an Alan Bennett monologue. Of course I did. Chip in the sugar. Lovely Yorkshire accent. I'm an 18-year-old boy from Bromley. And they kindly took me in. And I sort of felt like that was a much more fulfilling place to be.
Right.
I would say. Or it sort of ticked a lot of boxes for me wanting to spread my wings, but also not be confined by academic rigour.
Yeah. And did you then, so you hadn't really, if you were going to do history, ever, was it at that point where you joined, you thought, okay, now I want to go into acting?
Yes.
Or did you always have a bit of a...
Oh, I always liked performing.
Yeah.
And I always thought I wanted to be an actor, but it turned out I was just gay. So I was like just a bit of a show off, and I think I liked doing plays and stuff, but then at the same time I was always like, oh, why are the other characters talking? And then the way the actor like, let's take it really seriously, or like you have to be interested in Shakespeare even though it's really boring and rubbish. Mm-hmm. I think these people are like, actually it really is very serious. And I think it was at a time when they started to like encourage a lot of straight boys to go into acting. I guess there'd always been a time of it, but then they brought all this like competitive spirit to it, whereas I just wanted to make people laugh.
Yeah, they brought like their sport. Well, we used to have it where you choose 3 GCSEs, for example, and they'd choose sports, they'd choose woodwork, and they'd be like, oh, we'll do drama because it's a DOS.
It's a DOS.
So you had all these people that didn't care.
Oh,
they didn't care. And you're there doing your beat analysis on the script or whatever.
Yes.
You know,
always beating an analysis.
So mad.
Yes, of course. Reading Stanislavski, not knowing what it means. Because you have no feeling. You have no, like, what's it, memory recall? Like, emotional recall.
You've repressed yourself so long.
I'm very hard at covering these emotions up, so please don't tell me to bring them out now.
Do you know, I was once in a play and we had to cut a line of mine because it was something like, I had to say something like, I'm sorry. And I couldn't say it. But I had no feeling.
No feeling.
And the director was going, what? Why can't you say that?
It's like that. Like, have you seen a chorus line or listened to the music of it? There's a whole song about it. I should go to acting school, and I felt nothing.
Yeah.
And it's true. Like I just was like, I don't know. I don't feel like an ice cream. But then you get like these teachers who are like, I'm on a mission. I'm going to take one of these delinquent boys and turn them make them actually
Billy Elliot.
Like Billy Elliot them up. And then it's like their like little mission. I'm like, hang on a second, I'm the one who actually wants to be here. This is all I've got.
Yeah.
Not like this prick Gavin, who they want to have like this like charming anecdote about how they transformed Gavin. He got into RADA and now he's
exactly
in 10 years time,
and he's marrying Keira Knightley.
No, exactly. Like none of that.
Yeah, they want the poster boy.
They want the poster boy. They want that Disneyland story for themselves of how they were a hero, and I had no time for that. And I just wanted to be in things. And then they sometimes did musicals, but the person who directed musicals didn't like me, so she wouldn't cast me, and I've always held a grudge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Why didn't she like you? I find that hard to believe.
She thought I was a bit too much of a show-off.
Were you too busy slagging off Gavin behind his back?
Probably, yeah. She loved putting Gavin in it.
Yeah, I bet he was the lead.
Yeah, she was like, actually, Gavin can sing, that's great, we'll put him in it. And I think they just found me annoying and precocious, which actually I wasn't, but it was my only escape.
If anyone's listening, if anyone's listening to this, yes, but no, you will hear the odd noise. We've got a noisy corridor.
It is a noisy corridor.
We are recording this. No, don't. Because you're a busy guy. We're recording this at Television Centre.
Yes.
White City.
Yes.
And there's always people. Because you've been here a few times. You bump into the weirdest things. I bumped into a bunch of nuns today.
That's great.
Singing nuns.
Wow.
One time.
Apparently that was one of the musicals I wasn't cast in.
Really? Sister
Yeah,
Act?
Sound of Music. No, not Sister Act.
Oh, sorry.
We didn't do Sister Act at that school.
Sorry.
That would have been great, though, in a way.
Could have been Sister Act.
I would have been great, right? I would have been the Maggie Smith character. Obviously.
Yeah.
The moaning one.
Furious that Gavin's Dolores.
Oh, yeah.
So you then transitioned into comedy, clearly.
Yes. So then I worked at the National Youth Theatre, and then a friend of mine, Charlie Baker, and his wife Sam, and a couple of other friends there were like, oh, you should have a go at stand-up. And at that point, no one really did stand-up unless you were like a bloke. Like, it was not to make myself sound like some absolute pioneer, because obviously there were people out there before me, but on the television, it felt like stand-ups were still very blokey.
Yeah.
And I was like, that sounds ridiculous. I definitely would not suit doing that. I should have a go at it. And that sort of perpetuated me, I think, to try it, the sort of unusualness of it. And that was really fun. And I did that, and I sort of told stories and anecdotes. And I liked doing that, and then I entered some newcomer competitions. And I think because I was different...
Not just anyone's. You entered 2 big newcomer competitions. So You Think You're Funny and BBC New Comedy Award.
Yes.
For anyone who doesn't know, these are the kind of... There's competitions all over these days, but these are the big ones. Or were the big ones, really.
They were the only ones, I think. Or there might have been a couple of others. But yeah, well, I entered them and I won both of them, which was lovely. But then, of course, actually, that was quite difficult because people then had an expectation.
Yeah.
And really what I needed at that point was someone to go, you know what, go off and be shit for 5 years, which is what I ended up doing. But go off and be rubbish, learn what you're doing, learn a bit about yourself, and just keep doing it and don't give up. But instead...
And how old were you at this point?
Like 22, so too young to know anything about anything.
See, I
Pretty
felt
naive.
like I started around that age as well.
Yeah.
And did you feel like there was almost this kind of audience of people going, you're far too young to be telling me anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, occasionally they'd be generous and they'd be like, oh, we love you, that's so great. But a lot of the time they'd be that like, and would you find this actually in, because it's Manchester you grew up, isn't it?
I was born in Grimsby, but I grew up, but I moved to Manchester for uni, so I spent 8 years there.
But just that sort of, I don't know if it's a British thing or if it's a suburban thing, of that like, oh, who's this then? I don't like this. Like, just this sort of really like, rather than being like, oh, how interesting, a different voice, which they would be if you did a gig in Islington or maybe Didsbury in Manchester. But in a lot of like London or like a lot of places, I turn up and they're like, oh, no, I don't think, what does he think he is? I didn't like that, I didn't think that was, I don't know what he's talking about. And they'd be really like, and the more they did that, the more sort of insecure you feel, and that can be quite...
I remember I had once, I walked off in Burnley or something, and they went, oh, Bernard Manning would be turning in his grave. and literally was, and he said
I don't think he would, he'd be quite big.
The grave's not big enough. So you then, was it at that point, because you still actually did a bit of acting, I remember.
Yes.
Didn't you do a lot of radio acting?
I did, and so I didn't completely turn my back on it.
But we have a knock on the door.
Pause for 1 second.
I heard your laugh. I heard your. I'm talking. How are you, darling? You alright?
You know, Lee.
Hello.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Lee, I'm just doing Lee's podcast today.
Oh, sorry, have I just interrupted the podcast?
You're welcome
How
to.
terribly shit
It's a nice addition.
I just got a lift with Gloria Hunniford.
Shut up.
I know, right? And she was just like, what are you recording? And she was just like, I was just in my head going, it's Gloria fucking Hunniford.
What was she doing?
She's
been on the podcast.
Has she been on this podcast?
She's been on the podcast.
Has
Friend of this
she?
podcast. What was she like on the podcast?
She was great.
Is she using you as a rip-off? Are you a rip-off in some way?
No,
Yes,
I was like,
Gloria.
and she just went, let's do it now.
Wow.
She was,
Because I worked with her
she
on
was wearing
Women.
this amazing
Of course.
green little cut-off leather jacket.
Was
She looks
she?
amazing.
I bet
Yeah,
she's
She's
suede.
got good 70s right now. She's got
Yeah, she's a day.
And yeah, she's great. I was just going, so I had a little.
Oh my
moment.
god, of course. I almost started crying in the lift. Sorry. What was Gloria famous for? Was it Watchdog when we first
She
Yeah,
was on loads of things. She
Loads
was
of, like,
breakfast
consumer
telly and
stuff.
then consumer
I
stuff.
was always consumer stuff with Claire Rayner. I felt like her and Claire Rayner were quite
She
interchangeable.
had her own
She had her own
chat show as well.
show, yeah.
She
Gloria
did in a
Hunniford.
day.
Yeah, had her own chat show.
She talked on the podcast about interviewing Audrey Hepburn.
Wow.
Still available on iTunes.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I haven't got any stories like that, me. I didn't expect that.
Well, I
Wow.
shall leave you to your.
Oh, that's
I
right.
just want to
Well,
come
I'm
and
gonna
go.
say
No,
hi.
I'm Hunniford.
Oh no, I'm so glad you did. I'll come
Are
soon.
you, yeah, come say hi
And then
when
we
you.
can.
So we've just had a lovely knock on the door. Your fellow colleague Angela Barnes.
Angela Barnes.
And she chatted of how much she loves Gloria Hunniford.
Yeah.
She bumped into her in the lift. But that is the thing, like we were saying with Television Centre, it's one of those weird things, and you must get that now where you're obviously doing a lot more TV. You bump into or pass people. Do you still get it where you're like, oh my gosh, this is such and such, this is...
What, like people you meet who you're excited by?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. And then, like, I get so starstruck by, like, meeting Nick Knowles or like Vicky Pepperdine I met the other day
Oh, really?
from many things, but Getting On I love her in, and Joan and Jericho, the podcast she does with Julia Davis, and I was really excited and sort of beside myself. And 95% of the time they're very nice people that you meet, and it's lovely. I met Esther Ransom once.
Oh,
On
yeah.
High Street.
I worked with her. I was doing warm-up for a show she was on. She's bonkers, but I loved her.
Yeah.
She's
Oh,
great.
well,
She
isn't
started
she?
doing the warm-up for me. I was like,
Of
you can
course.
stay.
Back in the day, back at Pebble Mill,
I know, right?
Hearts of Gold. That's like they didn't have a warm up there, did they?
So you still did your acting. You did Bleak Expectations. You did a lot of radio.
I did get to do some acting, and it was always sort of comedy stuff, but I did enjoy it.
I was a bit like that.
Oh yeah, did you?
Like, I just loved the comedy
yes,
side of it.
yes. I think that is where that's what I just like it, and I like those sort of quirks about people, those moments that they show. I just like it. And
do you do that as much anymore? Because obviously your career is taking off now, and it has over the past few years. And actually, I was also thinking on this on the way in, and I was actually weirdly chatting to Andrew McLean, who I know worked with
on the Crystal Maze.
Yeah, and she said, "Oh, you must say hello. He's lovely.
Oh.
He won't remember me." I was like, "I think he will."
Follow you on Instagram and crossing like a crisscross.
But I was saying it's so nice for a comedian or a friend, as a friend as well, but like anyone who you know who's doing really well, and you're like, oh, I'm glad because they're a good person and they're a nice person, and you are. Do you still, obviously with all the TV stuff, do you still do the odd bits of acting, or is it kind of naturally moved?
Well, I think what I like about stand-up is storytelling, and I like that, and I like sort of the quirks of human nature and the way people are and the funny sort of nuances of their behaviour. I like that in stand-up, so I guess that sort of crosses over into acting to an extent. And so I've done bits, and I did a bit in like Josh Widdicombe's sitcom, and done stuff with various little bits here and there, and it's always fun to do. It's quite nice actually to play a different role. I mean, stand-up has a lot of acting about it as well.
Yeah.
It's sort of, well, the way I do it, mugging off. So there's always a bit of a hammy performance to be had.
And do you still get nervous?
Yes.
Do you know, because I read a quote, you know how much I love Adele.
Yeah.
And she was saying the bigger kind of you get, and obviously the more success you get, and as you know, you're on the same level as Adele.
Well, we're basically the same.
But the more pressure you have to go, this guy's off the telly, he's on Mock the Week.
She says that, does she?
She
I
does, of
I have
course.
felt that to an extent, actually. I think a sense of, what is the feeling? Just, like, you're always trying to prove yourself, you're always trying to do a good job. I think you always feel lucky to be there. I think maybe there are people who don't feel that lucky. Of course, this is always going to happen. But
yeah, I suppose you go from trying to prove to the audience that you're good, to moving to kind of proving that you're as good as they've seen you on.
Yes,
the telly.
it's always kind of wanting to do your best for people. And I suppose actually, it's the more experience we get, I guess the better we are at going, actually, my best is when I'm myself.
Yeah.
And actually... somebody said to me once, nerves are just the flip side of excitement. And I think that's sort of true. Actually, sometimes we can get nervous, but maybe it's just a way of reprogramming it for us that we need to do, of going, actually, I'm really looking forward to it. I've worked towards doing this. I just want to do my best job on this. I just want to do my best for everybody. I'm going to have a nice time.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes harder, isn't it, to be positive rather than... Sorry, I'm just putting in the door. Hello. Going to studio. Okay, I'll be up in a couple of minutes. All right, thanks. Thanks, sorry.
Totally. Well, I'm keeping you. No, I'm keeping you. But I wanted to ask before you go, I ask everyone this. Your mantra for life.
Oh, yes, I thought about this. Mine is... Somebody said this to me on a date once, and I ran into this guy.
I love the fact that yours is on a date. Brilliant.
And he was a nice guy, actually. I saw him the other day. Anyway, he said to me, and he got this advice from a stylist, and the advice was, never save anything for best.
Oh my God, can I just throw it out there? I'm pretty certain that was Gloria Hunniford's.
No way.
I think it was.
No way.
I think it... Oh, actually, hold on. No, I don't... No, it was Andrea's, maybe.
Well...
Oh, no, hers was keep moving forward. I don't know whose it was. It's probably
Andrea's
my
great
mum's.
for a positive quote as well on Instagram. She's very like
She is.
But, yeah, I think it's true. You get a new outfit. You get... I don't know, it's so easy to live life as a rehearsal. And I do it, and I'm so guilty of it. But, like, the other day, I was like, I've always wanted to go to this restaurant. I'm meeting my friend, why don't we go to this restaurant? Turned out, actually, the service was very poor, and I'm going to write a complaint. But the sense of wanting to go there, I was like, what am I waiting for? Why do I have to wait for my birthday to go there? I'm glad I didn't, because the service wasn't very good. Anyway, they gave me a table that was right in the middle of this waiter station. I mean, I could barely pull out my chair.
Oh, so you're more... I thought that more as in never save like a nice pair of shoes.
Yes, that's what it
also
starts
experience.
From. But experience is anything.
And I guess that goes to living in the present. Don't wait.
Don't wait. You don't know, you might get knocked over by a bus. What a way to go. Like that secretary did in the first series of The Crown, who actually I thought was the most interesting one.
I've not seen The Crown.
I think it's fine. But there were some things I thought, no, this doesn't check out. And I thought details it's missing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like at one point, they say to her, oh, you need to come through now, Your Majesty. And I thought, this at the end of the first series, and the photographer does it, and I thought, there's no way they'd be allowed to say that.
No.
And there's one scene when she walks into the banqueting room, and all the footmen are putting out the cutlery, and they all just carry on when she walks in. I was like, again, they would not
No
be able to do
way.
that. They'd all have to stop.
She's way more powerful than that.
And also, they crossed her on the stairs. They would not be allowed. Because when I worked at Fortnum & Mason, I got told off for using the main staircase once when I was staff, and I should have been using the back stairs. There's no way those footmen get to use the main stairways at Buckingham Palace.
If it doesn't happen at F&M,
then
it does not happen at B&P.
BP.
BP. Tom, thank you so much. I know you're a very busy man. I'm going to let you go.
To run off like this.
No,
if you want more from me, come back.
Well, you also have your own podcast with Susie Ruffles.
Oh, which you very
check
kindly
out.
guested on, Lee.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you so much for doing that.
Like-minded friends. I was going to say straight-minded friends. I was like, actually the very opposite.
It's a conversion therapy.
It's still going on. It's not effective.
Yeah. Still.
If anything, you've got gayer.
If anything, it's been a real hindrance. But like-minded friends, do have a listen if you like, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for having me.